have a solid number of people. Um, Welcome everyone to our third town hall, our February edition. I will now share it. I believe that's coming through now. So welcome. To kick things off, Jared, would you like to give us a quick update?
Sure. Yes, amazing progress since last town hall. Everyone's doing an amazing job. In terms of what I'm focusing on at the moment, today I kick off a new idea, a new swarm. That's Swarm 75. That is status every day. And basically with this, I aim to achieve installation of a culture of using status every day. To focus development around practical usage of status. So we had a bunch of ideas that have been quite successful and are coming to a close. We also captured a lot of other ideas that haven't really gained traction. And it's largely due to a lack of focus, making it harder to convince others to work on them. So the idea behind 75 will be to generate new ideas around problems that are immediately relating to using status in terms of daily communication, whether that's on desktop or on mobile. And these will also be incentivized as well to help encourage development growth in this direction, while at the same time having the normal product pipeline going ahead as a separate track. On top of that, I sat down with the sharding research team here in Taipei, discussing the Ethereum 2.0 architectures. It looks like the sharding protocol will be a separate sub-protocol on top of DevP2P, but it'll roughly follow the ETH protocol quite closely. They gave us some really interesting ideas, and there's a couple of slides on what the overall architecture will probably look like. And speaking of which, the NIM team has started up putting a lot of the groundwork in, doing a bunch of wrappers around various libraries such as RocksDB, the EVM just-in-time compiler, and the EWASM, which is the WebAssembly virtual machine for Ethereum 2.0. So this month, Nimbus will have an architecture design and a general roadmap put together. So that's quite exciting. My other focus is also going to be working with the Go team, just helping out as much as I can there, seeing how I can contribute to the sort of performance side of things. That's pretty much it. Also, the kudos bot, let's try and use it a little bit more. I think we started off great the first couple of days. Let's do some more of that, because I think that, showing appreciation is always great for everybody on board. It's also really cool to see other people presenting status and seeing status pop up around there. Like, I think Julian gave a recent talk that was fantastic. Also, I know that the markets have been a bit crazy lately, but I mean, for anyone who's been around crypto for a while, it's pretty humdrum. This business as usual. But I just wanted to say it's really fantastic to see everyone on the team just been focusing on the technology and getting stuff done, which has been fantastic. I think that's it from me at the moment. But yeah, keep up the good work, everyone.
Nabil, I think you are muted.
Yes, very good point. Thanks, Jared, for the for the update. Moving on to our non-developer updates. So we've changed the format here. So instead of looking forward to who will be joining, we look back at who's joined since the last time we presented this. And the delta there is 3 people. So we have Ricardo, who's joined as a designer based in Berlin. We have Kim, who's joining as a marketing manager working with Johnny out of Boston, and Mami, who's working on our NIM development. We'll have a quick update on NIM at the end. A reminder that we have 20 open roles. There's 4 roles there that are most important. And there's the SNT bonus for people who refer candidates. All right, on the marketing side, Johnny, I know it's 4:30 where you are, so.
Yeah. Hey, Nabel. Yeah, first and foremost, I just wanted to say we saw a significant increase in requests for early access so far in January, so that's really good news. So we just want to keep taking advantage of the attention on status and starting to drive more acquisition. So that's great. Next, Nabel, can you go to the next slide? So one of the things we're working on right now, and a lot of kind of great strategies. We're doing a lot of planning in February. We're working on some particularly to kind of transition the mission.
Hey, Johnny, I can. I think I can hear you. Somebody hears him?
I can't hear him either.
Anybody else?
Yeah, it's just muffled. I don't know if you want to move a bit closer to the mic.
Sorry, is that any better?
Hey, better.
Apologies. So we're working on positioning and messaging, really just defining the brand vision, mission. Everything's trying to lay the groundwork for all of the content marketing initiatives we run from here on out. Just defining a clear channel strategy, how we're using all of our channels, whether it's the website, social, status itself, just really, defining a role for everything in our ecosystem. And then from there, we're moving on to user journeys for various personas that we've identified. And then we're just going to create bespoke acquisition funnels or customer journeys for each one of those personas, making status marketing initiatives suited for everyone who we're trying to have use status. And the marketing team, we're actually meeting here in San Francisco next week to bring all these streams of work together and lay out a really solid 1-year roadmap from February. Another thing we're working on is an advocacy program. Obviously, our community is so important to us, so we want to provide a platform for any community member to really get involved and have a voice in what we do here at Status. And there's an initial positioning document for you guys to check out there. Hutch just wrapped up the first community competition, which is great. We saw a lot of really, really interesting and awesome, to be honest, writing submissions. We're reviewing all those now, and we're going to announce the winner this week. And then we're planning the next community competition, and we'll announce that in the next coming week. So it's exciting. A lot of ideas around what that can be, so keep an eye out for that. And then, so we're updating our email campaigns. We saw some good feedback and responses from our initial onboarding email campaign. Hester created some user feedback forms that we put in there, and we're just getting a lot of really good feedback coming through on status and what we're doing, so that's great news. And then the next step is to create bespoke campaigns for every persona, and with specific content, and again, tying back in unique user journeys for each person who uses status. And then we're working once again on an art project with TrueBit and installation artist named Jessica Angel. And Andy's working on an implementation to connect status to the actual structure. Like a 20-foot by 40-foot structure that's going to live in public areas. And Andy is working on an implementation to connect status and allow people to actually interact with the user status. It's really cool if you can for updates on that. And as part of that project, we're going to be hosting a Makeathon here in San Francisco on March 10th. Unfortunately, we'll all be in Bangkok for the offsite, but so we're gonna open up the project to the community and hopefully get some really good information on what they can do. Next slide. And another thing that's becoming really important to us is our involvement event. For anyone, if you have access, there's an event dashboard, so you can see all the stuff that's going on. Upcoming, we are receiving an award at the Nexpo House, NetExpo. So those are going to be the next day, so that's really, really exciting. Some details regarding that event and that award come out this week. We're sponsoring and taking part in the X Denver hackathon February 16th to 18th. We're really excited for that. There's going to be some really good talent and a lot of really cool projects involved in that as well. So excited to be part of it. Sponsoring a meetup in Florida called DevFest Space Coast. That's in Eugene. Once again, this is a really good example of the events around the world that we're happy to get involved in the egalitarian event. Excited for that. FTC in Paris, another event we're sponsoring. And meetup in Sydney, EdCon as well, on our list. You can see there's still a lot going on, which is really cool to get involved if possible. And once again, if there are events in your area and you want us to sponsor, to get involved, to give a talk, anything at all, let me know, reach out, and just like Eugene did with that Space Coast, we can help get involved. Another thing we're working on is the offsite planning. We're going to make some announcements this week, which are really exciting. Inviting local local community members who are in the Bangkok area to come and meet the team and get involved, and once again just be part of the status growing community. And then for anyone who wants to get direct access, there's a lot going on, a lot of planning, but also a lot currently at the moment. So you check out the editorial only with all the comms ready to go out. If you have any questions, feel free to ping me, and I'll be happy to answer.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Johnny. There's definitely a lot going on the marketing side. All right, so let's get into the development updates. We've got a bunch of things to go through: core, status of bounty, some new stuff that's fresh off Slack. So Oscar, you want to start off with the core?
Yeah, sure. Core swarms. So that's all the swarms that are on the critical path towards a beta. So we have a few areas. We have first of all performance, and we split up those into two swarms. So the first one is led by Dimitri, and it's about sort of the rendering side and the UI, and another one which is focused more on the things that involve status go. So that's a lot of that is networking and CPU usage and so on, which is led by Eugene D. Then we have security, which is about sort of us feeling confident in enabling mainnet by default, and that's being led by Adam. And then we have a better UX UI, which is app restructure led by Julian, and onboarding led by Andre, the designer, and then general process, which is about sort of releasing, which I'm leading. So going into more detail, we have, if you want to go to the next slide, thanks. So 55A, which is about so a lot of that is about regardless of what's going on in the app, in the background or whatever, if messages are incoming, or regardless if you have 1 or 1,000 messages, that the app should still perform the same. And you can see there's a bunch of stuff, several sort of directions that are being pursued, having to do with sort of our internal databases, sort of having an understanding of what's in the queue, which is how we render things and stuff like that. So if you're interested, you can click through some of these links to read more about that. And then next one, which is sort of more about so you can read more. If you're more interested, you can have a look later. And this is more so about the network and Whisper side. There's a lot of efforts going into sort of figuring out where so much of our network use is coming from and what we can do about it. Also, Eugene started looking into Whisper version 6 and see what we can do there, and also seeing how we can deal with how we do Whisper topics and so on, and just sort of making it perform better, both network and CPU wise. Yeah, and you can have a look at these links if you want to read more about any of these things. App restructure, I got a full screen browser for dApps. The wallet is migrated, some cleanup, general cleanup and so on. Moving towards using UI components for UI. And then we also have a new profile screen, which we can see on the next slide. Where to the left you can see the before, and now to the right it's sort of in line with you can still see that you can still navigate between tabs and so on. Yeah, and then let's see, next slide. So release 0913 is out. We got a dedicated Jenkins pipeline. We're starting to sort of decentralize the capability of doing releases. So we have a checklist for that and so on. So Eric is doing the release cutting this time. Next release is coming out in 1-2 weeks. We also starting to use sort of more automated testing, and Anton is working on getting feedback directly in PRs on how automated testing are performing. Also integrating Fastlane so we can do automated sort of builds easier, and speccing out some user flows, which are also useful for general testing and automated testing. And we also have another slide where this is just right now it's mostly an internal testing tool called TestRail, but this is kind of how the test team has started using it more and more, which is about speccing out these sort of capabilities and things that we want to always to work. And then the idea is that we want to automate this by automated use testing, and then at some point we'll sort of cover more and more, and we can stop having so many regressions. And those, if you want to look at that in more detail, those details are in LastPass. And Anna can also answer questions about that. And then 24 onboarding and 58 mainnet, they are just getting started. The design team is meeting in Berlin, and I believe Andre will talk more about the design for that to sort of finalize the design, and we're going to start development this week, hopefully. 58 mainnet, so a lot of that is about sort of doing the security audit, and we are in contact with a firm that will get back to us this week and sort of get the audit started, and then the initial audit will take maybe 4 to 6 weeks, and then it will probably be sort of a continuous thing, but we are still looking into the details. And we're also going to put up a bounty program similar to what we had for S&T this summer. That's it for core swarms.
Thanks, Oscar. Andre, you want to give us an update on the design stuff you guys are working on for onboarding?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So the main stuff, the main things we're focused on is designing the onboarding and doing a bunch of UX research. Also, yeah, like Oscar mentioned, we got together in Berlin, and the first time we met each other physically, and we are now physically in the same place. So we want to use that opportunity to collaborate more effectively, and we're actually thinking of like adding more structure and strategy to the design processes, and being like a more solid design team. Since it's growing now, we got like at the beginning of the town hall, you mentioned that we now have Ricardo as a senior UX designer who just joined us. And yeah, so getting in a little bit more details about the design, the onboarding, we decided to take this like structured approach and not to repeat our old mistakes, to do much more research before actually diving into designing the mockups. So here's like the basic list, the basic overview of the process. So we started with define the personas, define the entry points, user goals, creating user flows, and design validation. So can you move to the next slide, please? So yeah, I wanted to mention that onboarding seems like a really challenging task because it seems easy, but status is focused on delivering the ultimate and smooth experience to people, and people who are not that familiar with cryptocurrency. So we're investing a lot of effort in doing the onboarding in a really smooth way. So we first of all defined the scope that onboarding is not only about account setup, but it's as well a huge part of it is like the empty states of the screens and the educational layer to provide some basic info and avoid common misconceptions. So this is like the classic splash screen. Can you move to the next slide, please? So once you set up the account, you get this welcome screen that indicates that you have successfully set up your account and everything went good. So move to the next one, please. We decided that there has to be a few predefined chats to give you an overview of how stuff works. So for now, we kind of decided that if it's technically possible to put there the status network chat and the status console, and they immediately have like a few messages for you in order to get used to the user interface. Next slide, please. one of the main parts, one of the main points we want to make, and the main difference to compare with the old onboarding flow, we decided to move the backup passphrase from the initial onboarding to the profile in order to avoid user distraction and make the account setup more quick. And we decided not to force people to back up the passphrase as long as they don't feel that this is necessary for them. So this part has been moved to the profile. Next slide, please. The other important thing is the concept of the sign-in phrase, which might be confusing to people. So we decided to move it to the wallet setup. So when you first open up the wallet, it welcomes you with this nice like welcome screen and explains hopefully what the wallet is and how it works, and it asks you to set up the wallet by showing you your sign-in phrase, explaining why do you need the sign-in phrase, and then you're ready to go. Next slide, please. And yeah, and the other important thing that is going on is a UX research led by Hester, and she wanted to give a little more detail about that. Hester, are you ready?
I think she's on the call. She might be muted.
Anyway, yeah, it's okay. I'll give the overview by myself. So, Hester is running a few test sessions with actual users. So we have a bunch of design updates, not only the onboarding but the app restructure, and we wanted to get some early user feedback and insights. Again, not to repeat our own mistakes and to gather as much feedback as we can. So Hester is doing a great job. We're getting a bunch of interesting data from our users. They're using the prototype, and it all looks really interesting and fun. Next slide, please. Here's the link to the onboarding flow. So I just covered the main screens. If you're interested in checking that out, you can use this link or the QR code. It's also here. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Andre. Arash, you want to give a quick update on Status Open Bounty?
Yep. Hey guys. Cool. So just a few things that are happening on Open Bounty, and I'm just sharing a couple of them. Obviously, there's lots of other things that are going on that I didn't want to necessarily get into. So just since our last day, stuff that have been released to master. So one of the big functionalities that were released is 156, which is paging for open bounties and activity views. So now on the list of open bounties limited to 15 items on a screen, and then you can it pages through, so pages loaded a lot faster and the UI looks a lot cleaner. That both applies to the activity views and the bounties itself. So that's something we've released. A couple of things that are in testing at the moment. A big one is the 179, which is the sort filter functionality. And so that's in our test at the moment and just undergoing through some testing, soon to be released into master release. And the other one is the auto funding bot, which is a really, really cool feature that Aragon helped us set up. And then we took over and put a bounty up on it. So that one is a really cool feature. If you don't know about it, essentially it'll help automate the funding of bounties. So you'll have a particular bot that runs and you give it a certain amount of funds and it'll automatically fund the bounties for you based on some predefined metrics that you set. So that'll really help organizations speed up their process and allow developers just to constantly put bounties up without having someone to monitor and constantly fund those bounties. So that'll be really cool. And a couple of things that are happening in active development. So obviously, and I've kept mentioning this before, so we're working with the Consensus and the Bounties Network guys on a standardized bounties. So Ricardo's helping work through that at the moment with them, and hopefully we'll come up with a standardized bounties contract that we can co-develop and then put across the platform, and then encourage anyone else that's using bounties platforms, I guess, in the ecosystem to also use that smart contract. The other things that we're working on is improving the current user flow, and a big part of that is the site redesign, and I've put a little demo of what that currently looks like. It's yet to be finalized, but that's the current stage. So yeah, we're working towards a much better UI and interface. A couple of updates. So thanks, Andy, for pulling all this together. Just in terms of where we are internally and how we're tracking on our use of Open Bounty. So you can kind of see the number of issues that have been opened up and bounties that have been awarded, both internally and across some of the other organizations that are using the platform. So we're slowly growing. And if you go to the next slide, you can see our kind of average number of bounties that we're posting internally to Open Bounty is slowly. We had a bit of a dip there, but thanks to Andy and the work of everyone and constantly keeping Open Bounties on their mind, that is growing, which is fantastic to see. And just on the last slide, just a bit of updates on our metrics and where we're tracking. So this is as of February. So based on our $1 million pledge, we've kind of spent around 22,000 USD at the moment, and that's broken down into about 130,000 SNT and 105 ANT that Aragon have paid out. So that's what we've paid out to the community to date. We've also got roughly around 1,000 developers onboarded and 22 repos across 5 organizations. So great stuff over the last couple of months, and we'll look to grow that obviously exponentially in the future.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. A quick research update. Jared, do you want to give a quick update on this? Because I don't think there's anyone from the NIM team on at the moment.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, Zahari and Alexander had been working on a Python to NIM translator. They managed to release the first version of that and use PyEVM as its first test candidate in terms of like actual complex code. A bunch of sort of issues surfaced up on that, but also it was quite successful in translating large portions of the PyVM code base. We've also have the RLP serialization and the tree implementation kind of done, although there is new research in terms of a binary version of the encoding, so we'll be looking to do that shortly. In terms of the virtual machines, I mentioned briefly before that we've wrapped the EVM just-in-time compiler. This is the fast virtual machine that's used in the plus version of Ethereum. And we also are now wrapping the Kira, which is a WebAssembly version of the virtual machine, which will be used in Ethereum 2.0. This is really amazing because one, it allows you to use any language that has an LLVM backend that also includes NIM. So NIM can be used for smart contracts. Same with like Rust or C, C++, that sort of thing. And in addition to that, it allows no precompiles as well. So that's a huge thing. A huge sort of wart in Ethereum has been precompiles, and now we don't need to do it, which is great. We'll also be working on a pure NIM virtual machine as well. But the main focus there will be getting the sort of networking layer sorted. And we've been going back and forth between the dev P2P versus lib P2P, because there's basically, it looks like, as far as I could tell, ultimately Ethereum will be moving into lib P2P, but it might take like a year or so before what that looks like will become fully realized. So in the meantime, we'll be working on implementing dev P2P. I think that's pretty much it at the moment on that side. Again, this month is all about determining the product timeline and scope and overall architecture, and hopefully we'll have a lot of clarity on what that looks like at the end of the month, and we can start using that for proposals.
Awesome, thanks, Jared. So we now have a quick overview of a new GitHub bot that Pedro has been working on. Pedro, do you want to go through?
Yeah. Hey guys, just wanted to introduce the new bot. This was actually an open bounty, opened by Eric. It was the last bounty that I did before joining Status. And this has been in production for the last couple of weeks. And the idea is to automate a lot of the manual stuff that we have to take care of, both in GitHub and the Status Open Bounty pipeline. This is leveraging Probot, which is an open source framework which has a great community and lots of pre-made bots that we're packaging inside our own bots and along with some custom scripts. So as you can see in the case of the Status Open Bounty, as soon as you say that a bounty is awaiting approval, you tag the issue, and the bot notices that and moves it into the right column in the project board. It takes care of all the, eventually it will do the whole process and remove all manual work needed. Next slide. The same thing for the pull request flow. It will welcome new pull requests. The first time that a developer does a pull request on a repo, it will immediately get a welcome message, and we'll notice that through a Slack message from the bot. That will give a lot more visibility to new contributions. And also a big part of the value of the bot is that it will check the conditions of each pull request, and as soon as it sees that it's ready for QA, it will take care of moving that into the correct column, and vice versa. There's a, let's say, develop moved along and there's a merge conflict. It will notice that and move it back to the contributor column to let the contributor know that there's work to do before it can move back to test. We're hoping to see a lot more functionality, in terms of release management, stats, also being able to merge pull requests from Slack. That would be cool. And most of those will be done in the form of the Status Open Bounty. And it was really cool. I was really excited to see that one day after opening the first Open Bounty, we already had a contributor, and that Open Bounty is already in the approval phase. And we already have 5 or 6 Open Bounties open. So really excited to see that. That's
awesome.
All.
Thanks a lot, Pedro. This is great work.
Thank you.
Just before we finish up, so last time we did a demo of our status on desktop using Electron. This week we have an update on our React Native implementation of desktop. Volodymyr isn't here to kind of give a quick explanation, but next time he said that he will. But in the meantime, there's a video. Let's see. I don't know how well videos will stream over BlueJeans, but
working well so far.
You can see that you've got home, wallet, and profile tabs. And
yes, basically this is we've all been using Status Desktop through Electron, and that's based on React Native Web. But this is just a development of the React Native Qt, and it's now rendering a lot of GUI components, which is fantastic. They also fixed a bunch of issues in terms of loading in Status Go and communication between Status React and Status Go, which is now getting us much closer to much more secure and much more faster implementation of Status Desktop.
Awesome. And on that note, we can move to Q&A.